Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new malicious compliance stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first one is titled, "Ask me to go above and beyond? Sign this please." They threaten to fire him until he shows them the signed waiver. He eventually gets a lawyer, takes it to court and walks out better than he started. One of the most entertaining things in a customer service dealing with the public role is the husband and wife dynamic. Sometimes the husband is the more reasonable of the two. Sometimes the wife is the calm and understanding ones. Other times they're both a bunch of idiots. On this particular day, I had a lovely wife with an extremely aggressive husband come into the warehouse and pick out a storage ottoman they wanted. Now the storage ottomans were a frustrating item, as the metal mechanisms that allowed the lid to be opened and shut made the ottomans extremely heavy, needing at least 2x people to lift it. Naturally, aggressive douchebag husband flat out refuses to pay delivery for his ottoman he's just purchased. In his words, "We'll just pick it up." "Yeah right buddy, more like, we will drive our small car around back and your warehouse staff can do it." The husband and wife conclude the sales process in the store and the sales associate passes a copy of the paperwork onto me. I scan it over and make sure they've ticked off and signed off on the terms and conditions, that all clearance sales are final, that all clearance sales are as is, that warehouse staff, sales staff are not covered under any insurance for loading or unloading customers' goods and customers are responsible for the pickup of any items them purchase, order, etc. The customer pulls the car around, and it's a smallish car, but should be fine. The husband walks over and I show him where his freshly bagged ottoman is and hand him a trolley. "Man, what's that for?" "Me, to load your ottoman sir." Man chuckles, No, you're helping me." "Me, there's two of you sir, you'll be fine." Man, well then I'm cancelling my order and filing a complaint against your company. I just sigh. I don't want to cost this salesperson a sale, but my gut is trying to tell me something. I quickly go into the office and grab a release form which we use for anyone picking up clearance, but make a few handwritten notes of my own. I bring the paperwork back out and show it to the customer. "Me, sir, could you fill out your full name, contact details, and initial these handwritten comments and sign this release?" "Man, why?" "Me, it just says that you're happy to have me help you load up your ottoman and that if anything happens you won't hold us liable." Man smirks, "Wow, you guys sure take things seriously." I just smile as he signs the document. I pass it to my offsider, asking him to make a few photocopies for the sales associate, the manager, the area manager, and the general manager. The wife grabs one end along with her husband and I grab the other end. We all lift it up and begin walking it toward the trunk of the car. The wife seems fine but the husband is struggling. He keeps asking to put it down so he can take a break. We pick up the ottoman again, and as we are just about to reach the car, the husband lets go of his end, the lounge tips to the right, I lurch forward and the ottoman smashes into the back of their car, taking out the right-hand side tail light. The wife immediately starts laughing as the husband loses his crap. He is inspecting the damage and is looking at me with wild eyes, wanting me to offer him an admission of guilt. I calmly stand there as they load up their ottoman and drive away. The next day the husband calls the store. He is filing a lawsuit against the company for damages and has provided HR and head office with excessive estimates. Immediately, I am called into the boardroom upstairs. There's the general manager, the manager, HR and a legal representative who is there for the shareholders. GM and HR explain to me that they're not risking a lawsuit, that they're going to pay for this guy's car and that they're going to fire me. Without a word, I take out the document the customer signed. I hand it to the HR rep, who hands it to the GM. Me, the customer signed off on a release form after I explained that the company didn't cover or expect me to load his goods. The customer clearly stated here that if I helped him he was absolving me of any liability including vehicle damage. The GM hands the document over the lawyer who scans it. And his face changes, they know they can't do anything. Me, I couldn't help but add this, "Ask your lawyer over there." I did exactly what the customer asked me to do, I helped them. It was the customer who dropped his end of the ottoman, he caused the damage, not me. There's silence in the room. I turn and walk out. I've had enough. I go to the warehouse, grab my bag, get a bus home and play some Dead Space 2. There was aftermath. I went to my best friend to get a lawyer and put my own lawsuit against the company, for a variety of issues. This started a legal battle. After this crap transpired, I got together with my best friend and we started looking into the company and the safety procedures they were breaking, the fact they were not hiring enough staff to safely lift items, no lift access in the store which breaches safety laws regarding moving heavy items and also breaches a few laws around access for people on wheelchairs or disabilities, no overtime pay when people are forced to work overtime, etc. The general manager ran a special promotion during my time there for proceeds that would go to a cancer charity, and guess what? The $50,000 meant to go to charity disappeared, and somehow found its way into his bank account. There were also some claims made about the furniture that were false, made in Italy, actually made in China, 15-year warranty, 2-year warranty, unlimited cleaning for the entirety of you owning the sofa. Claims were always denied, stuff like that. Armed with all this, my lawyer and I went to a mediation, where their legal team tried to pressure me into not taking a payout of my wage, my holiday pay, and a payout of all my other benefits, if they made this lawsuit against me go away. Imagine their surprise when my lawyer began bringing up all the safety violations, staff wage discrepancies, not to mention the outright lies and stealing carried out by management. The meeting was quickly postponed and the lawyer for my ex-employer and the general manager asked for a private conversation outside. They asked me what it would take for me to not go ahead in court. My lawyer asked for all my benefits paid, and to pay out the rest of the year as if I had been working a 5-day week. They deliberated for 15 minutes before they agreed. What they didn't agree on is that we couldn't send off the violations to all the necessary government bodies. Last I heard, the GM and management team were fired and the company was fined $250,000. The next one is titled, Called Our Bad Realtor's Bluff. My better half and I are in the market for a home. We've been casually searching for 4 years, and this year we really kicked it into gear. We nailed down where we wanted to live, our price range, got approved, and actually found a house we wanted to put an offer on. We contacted an agent my husband found and said he thought he wanted to work with due to the guy's other interests and the niche he'd built himself in that area right up our alley. Against my better judgment, we signed with the guy as our buyer's agent. I'll call him Agent Douche, for the purposes of this story. So, Agent Douche was our exclusive buyer's agent. I personally thought he was a yes man, but my husband didn't see it. He knew we would be buying sight unseen, cannot be helped, yes it's unwise. He went to this property, and had only glowing reviews. We asked if he saw any signs of water damage, husband has mold sickness, have to be careful, and he emphatically said there was none, whatsoever. It was pristine. He kept telling us how amazing it was, how it wouldn't last, how we'd better offer a decent chunk over asking if we want to have a chance at it. We did not feel that was a good idea. Against his advice, we offered below asking, and it was readily accepted. First red flag for me is an agent forcefully urging me to offer above asking with no other offers on the table. So we get the inspection, a guy Agent Douche recommended personally, and ended up paying twice what it should have cost, $875. I'll give the inspector credit though, that report was exceedingly thorough, and we got it back within a day. A cursory glance at the inspection report, though, showed a large area of wood floor under a window in the living room, in plain sight to Agent Douche, was black from water seeping in. The guy says he's got 15 years of experience, he should have seen that. But he isn't an inspector, and that's not necessarily his job. But still, another sign he's playing yes man to get us to buy anything at the highest cost. Anyhow, we immediately back out of that deal, and tell him why. He asks, "Are you mad at me?" I was taken aback by this question coming from a grown man who says he's an ex-Marine, but whatever. I tell him it's fine, and that we must move on to another property. He seems quite upset by this, but agrees. I get an email from the inspector 2 days later saying that he's gotten an email from the seller of that home, asking for another copy of our inspection, and that he will not send it to them without our consent, as we own it. I immediately ask Agent Douche if he sent our inspection to the seller after we backed out, and he says he did, and says, "I'm sorry, I should have asked." I tell the inspector that we do not want our inspection shared without our consent, and that if the man wants another inspection, the seller was loaded, he can pay for his own. Over the next few weeks, Agent Douche sends us a handful of properties we had already excluded as out of our price range. Let me say, our price range is pretty high. If I can't find a home for under $500,000, I don't want one. I repeatedly tell him these are too expensive. There are homes within our range. Eventually he relents and sends 1 or 2 within our range. He's still not sending us anything that fits our criteria, though, like not even a little, and we're actually doing all the legwork. I keep sending him homes we've found online. He comes up with one excuse or another as to why it won't work, but I tell him I want to see information on it. He's definitely irritated at this point, but sends me bits and pieces of information over the course of days. After pulling out of the offer on the first home, Agent Douche has become increasingly difficult to reach. He's told my husband he's so busy that he must start turning people away. It becomes a running joke in our house. Have you heard from Agent Douche about that house we sent him? Haha, yeah right. Homes hitting the market at this point were going under contract within 24 hours, due to low supply. So, him taking 2, 3, 4 days to get us basic information like whether or not there's an HOA, or what it uses for heat, are a detriment. He repeatedly urges us to make offers above asking on homes he hasn't even pulled info on, let alone set foot in. He says this is necessary because things are moving so quickly. I'm too uncomfortable to do this. He's playing around with $5,000 in earnest money, and just no. I realized pretty quickly that he took us as clients only because we'd found the home already, and he thought it would be quick money for him. Can't say I blame him on that, but when it became clear that it was not the right property, if he did not have time for us, he should have sent us on our way. We tell him we're feeling neglected, and it's taking too long to get answers on basic questions. He keeps saying, it's no big deal, like that somehow makes me feel better about not buying a home because he's too busy for us. We ask him if there is someone else at his brokerage we can work with who has time, but he owns it, so there's not. We send him another home, and he actually went out and took a few 15-second videos there. We ended up making an offer. Again, he urges us to offer well over asking. I tell him that's not happening, and offer $30,000 under. Sellers counted at 25 under, and this is accepted by us. 2 days into contract, I have to ask him if we are actually under contract. No contact from him one way or another, so no idea. He eventually responds and says we are. Okay, great. 4 days into our 10-day inspection period, and still haven't heard word one from him. I finally ask him if we're planning to schedule any inspections. He says, I'll connect you tonight, and then doesn't. The next day, 5 days into this inspection period, I tell him we'd like to cancel the contract, and cancel our contract with him again. The mold test we need will take 5 to 7 days, so we literally can't get it inspected in the time left. He immediately calls me, and it does not go well. I tell him we're unhappy, he calls me unreasonable, again says, it's no big deal, blah blah blah, but he begs for another chance. Literally he begged me. So, fine, whatever. One more chance. We find the perfect property, and immediately email it to him. He says he's set an appointment to view it the next morning. 2 days later, he finally sends us a totally different, much more expensive property. I tell him my husband has left to go there already, and may choose to see it when he's there, but that we are really interested in the other one we sent him, and ask if he ever make it out to see it. He responds with, you should make an offer on this one as soon as possible. Like what the hell, dude? So again, I ask him point blank, did you go see the other home at XYZ, or not, and he finally admits he didn't bother going to see it. And now, since it's been 2 more days, there's an accepted offer. He will not go see it, so we might put a backup offer in. The next day I receive videos of the more expensive property, that I never asked for, nor wanted. My husband then arrives, having 30 hours to go to this area to look at the area, and some properties, and meet Agent Douche. Husband texts updates on his trip to Agent Douche along the way, but never gets a response. I speak to Agent Douche the night before, telling him my husband will be there in the morning. I tell him to please call and coordinate with him, that he's available now to speak. He told me he would, when we ended our call, but didn't. The next day my husband arrives, he texts to say he's arrived, and Agent Douche has no response. He waits, and waits, but still nothing. Tries to call, no response. After another 7-ish hours, it's now dark, and our agent has ghosted him all day. Husband texts him to say we want out, that he's driven all the way here, and been ghosted. Agent Douche flips his crap. Like instantly. He says he didn't ghost anyone, and that we never told him what day he was arriving, or that he got there, obvious and provable lies, and he figured he'd want to rest the whole first day. With 30 hours each way, and a full week taken off work for this, losing income, we did not want that, which he would have known had he asked, or coordinated at all. Things fully collapse at this point, and become outright hostile. He says immediately that we are in a contract with him, and there's nothing we can do. We have to work with him, or we can agree to pay him 3% or get a new agent to agree to pay him a referral fee. These are the only terms I'll agree to. It's your best option, you should take it. I think this would be reasonable, if our reason for cancellation were not his own negligence. I tell him there is no way in hell I will allow him to profit for dicking us around. He literally laughs at me, and says I have no choice. Bad idea. I have an attorney look over the contract, and yes, we're ducked contractually. Funnily enough, the attorney tells me he is very aware of this guy, and he does this all the time. Apologizes that we're in this mess, but says there's nothing he can do about it. I ask him about posting reviews of our experience, that I'm worried about a defamation suit. He says that as long as it's true, and I have proof, I cannot be sued for defamation. I call the Real Estate Commission and speak with an investigator for the entire state. He asks where in the state this occurred, and I tell him. He says, "Is it Agent Douche?" and my jaw dropped. He says he gets a lot of calls about this guy, that there are lots of problems, but that he hides behind pretty ironclad contracts, so he continues to do this legally. He's been doing it for years, apparently. He tells us that if we try to circumvent the contract, we will almost certainly be sued by this man. He's done it before. I tell Agent Douche that the least he could do if he doesn't have time to do his job, is release us. Again, he laughs. I tell him I will report these actions to the Real Estate Commission. HAHAHAHAJA is his response. I tell him fine, then he can expect people to hear about what's happened to us online. He says, I will sue you. I tell him that I will only be posting a true account of events, with written proof, and therefore it is not libelous, and he can sue me, but will not win. He replies, "You two are psychopaths." Now I really start to get angry. I emailed Agent Douche and told him point blank that if his terms for cancellation were not acceptable to me, and mine were not acceptable to him, then we are still legally bound. As such, I fully expect him to do his job. I sent a list of houses we would never otherwise consider. He did nothing for 2 days, and for 2 days I asked him probably 10 times a day to send me documentation on them. He asked if I even meant to send those to him, and I said, "Of course, you're my agent, are you not?" He sweetly replies that he is, and that he'll send the information that evening. I send him like 8 more listings, all in a different geographical area. The contract was for the entire state, and all well below our price limit. Like some were under 100K, and all were really rough. That evening, Agent Douche starts to try to team up with my husband against me. For some reason he thinks this tactic will work because my husband avoids confrontation whenever possible. He emails my husband. He forwards the listings I've sent, and asks my husband if I am mentally unstable, and says he thinks he should get me some help. It does not go well, and husband tells him to pump his brakes, and that he has no right to talk about me that way. Agent Douche doesn't respond. Instead he writes me, telling me he thinks I'm unstable. His logic is that I'm not happy with him, and don't want to work with him, and now I'm sending him properties, so I must be mentally incompetent. I tell him again that we have 4 months left on our contract, and I am under no obligation to accept his terms for cancellation if they do not benefit me, just like he is not obligated to accept mine. He emails my husband again, saying that he's got some agents who will be really nice to Mizzle, and husband just says, "We don't need your referrals, dude." Next day another agent calls me. Agent Douche wants me to sign with them instead, and they've already agreed to accept less commission so he will be paid. I have a lovely chat with the nice couple on the phone, and then tell them flatly that under no circumstances will I allow him to profit financially for doing this to us. He's become openly hostile, rude, and calls us names. They didn't really know what to say, so we amicably ended the call. They call me back a bit later, I suppose after talking to Agent Douche, and ask again if I'll consider signing with them just to be done with the situation, that buyers don't even pay the commission, and that they will even pay for my inspection. Wow. Once more I tell them no, that is not their responsibility, and I won't allow them to go out of pocket for this clown. I tell them in no uncertain terms that I would choose to wait out this contract before signing with anyone else. That I might consider signing with them, I never would because of their affiliation with him, but only if we were released fully from the contract beforehand. I told them that if we somehow decided to purchase one of the 2 homes he showed us, that I would feel obligated to pay him, but short of that, there is no way. Agent Douche emails and texts more, calling me more names for refusing to sign his cancellation terms, even though he's done the same to me. I again send him a handful of crappy listings, and very valid reasons I might want each property. He says nothing, and I ask him every 2 to 3 hours to send me documentation on them. That if he's still our agent, he's obligated to do something. That he cannot legally refuse to fulfill his contractual duties, and still keep us in the contract. He must choose. At this point I'm building a pretty solid paper trail of begging him to do what he is contractually obligated to do, and evidence of his refusal. Agent Douche has started to realize that I am not going to go away. I keep sending him properties, and keep at him to send me info, which he never does. Finally, mercifully, Agent Douche texts me that he is terminating us as clients, and that we are free to work with whoever we want. 2 days later, he finally sends me the contract cancellation. We are elated, and sign quickly as it all is in order. After, though, I take a very close look at his actual signature on the page. He signed the cancellation duck off instead of Agent Douche. Guy's a real class act. Luckily, our attorney said through his laughs that the cancellation is still binding, and if he did try to take us to court, he'd obviously have to explain to a judge that he signed a legal document with an expletive. He assured us that we finally were done with him. The Real Estate Commission investigator had actually asked me to keep him updated on the outcome of the situation. So, after hearing back from the lawyer that we were indeed done, I called him back to tell him. I told him exactly what happened, and that I just forced him to work with us until he realized he'd have 4 more months of me still not going away, so he cancelled. Mr. Nice Investigator could not stop laughing. He told me Agent Douche calls him regularly, and uses him as a point of contact because none of the other investigators will speak to him. He tells me the guy has a few screws loose. I tell him I hope he will tell anyone else in our position what worked, and to feel free to pass my info along if necessary. He readily accepts that offer, and we jovially end the call. In the end I'm very glad I stood up to this butthole, and I have 0 regrets. We called his bluff, and I can pretty well bet that no one had done that to him before. He was absolutely used to bullying people into getting his way. Thanks for listening.